Friends Forever. Friends Forever was the first program that was at Rotary when I visited the first time and just floored me immediately. I told this story a couple times introducing them over the years here, but there were 5 kids, or 10 kids altogether from Israel, high school students, 5 Arab, 5 Jewish, and they were together presenting, and just the way that they spoke about their experience, what they were learning about conflict resolution, you could see them blossoming as young leaders. It was an amazing experience to see that morning. And Friends Forever has, I'll let them introduce themselves in a minute here, more of the history of the program. But it's gone through a lot of changes through the years. It's continued to expand into new areas of the world. It's expanded into new ways of helping develop young leaders in the new era that we live in now with the pandemic, where it's a lot harder for young people to travel internationally. And so hopefully this morning we'll have a great update on some of the things that are happening here. We have with us this morning several people, that, as Stu already mentioned. We have Steve Martineau, Executive Director. Steve joined Friends Forever as Executive Director in November 2005 after spending time working with Habitat for Humanity in South Carolina, the Children's Museum of Boston, and My Town, an innovative inner-city youth organization in Boston. Over the years, Stephen's tenure has seen FFI expand to multiple sites across the continental United States, the establishment of Friends Forever Europe in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and the formation of partnerships and FFI programs in the Middle East, the acquisition and renovation of the Friends Forever International Campus in Durham, New Hampshire, 2.6 acre space devoted to peace and leadership development. In addition to nearly 2 decades of high-level experience in the field of NGOs, Stephen brings to Friends Forever International a genuine passion for building active leaders to service on the local and global levels by empowering the most underutilized asset in the world today, youth. Also, we have Alex DesRuisseaux, Program and Community Engagement Coordinator. Alex joined the FFI team in 2021 with loads of enthusiasm for youth and leadership development. Outside of FFI, Alex works as a teacher and ELO coordinator for an alternative high school in Rochester, New Hampshire. She brings along 3 years of teaching experience, 10 years of summer camp experience, and 4 years of involvement with YMCA Youth-Based Leadership Program. She received her bachelor's degree in elementary education with a certification in secondary education, psychology minor, and social studies concentration from the University of Maine at Presec Isle in 2019. She is passionate about FFI's mission and excited to engage with youth and the community through new and exciting ways. We also have with us this morning Addi Weaver. She is a senior at Bloomington High School, and she participated in the domestic program the first year that was done here with FFI, and she's going to be presenting about her experience probably for the majority of the presentation. So if we can give a warm round of applause for everybody presenting this morning, I think if we could have Steve and Alex start us off. Let's welcome them.
Thank you so much, Mark, and I'm glad my mom was able to get in touch with you to get you my bio. I appreciate that. I don't even recognize that person. But I think the main thing that I miss, I've been to your club a couple of times, and obviously haven't been there since 2018, I believe, is, to be serious, the camaraderie and the laughter that I have always said is, it's just different. I'm from upstate New York, but, I've been in New England now for 20 years, and the sort of bon ami, the engagement that you all have with each other is something that when 10 years ago, Roger brought me to Bloomington Normal's community, really helped solidify for me why it was so important in whatever shape or form that Friends Forever continues to have a deep relationship in the heartland and in your community. And I honestly mean that. We've had other communities come and go, but we will do whatever we can to stay there, because I think it's so important for us to stay attached to it because of this spirit, because of this just laughter in the face of being up at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's really something incredible. I also wanted to thank Marc. You know, I'm just going to very briefly go over our history for those who don't know, but I think the main thing to understand is we were started in 1986 out of a Rotary club here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. So this was not started as its own NGO. This was started by one man. He was a YMCA youth director. He received a call from some folks in Northern Ireland saying we need to get young men out of Northern Ireland in the summer because the violence was really at an all-time level. And he just said, yes, I'll do it. He didn't ask anybody to, you know, permission, how will I do this, et cetera. He said, I'll do it. And the reason Bob was able to do that is because he was a member of Rotary. So he knew that if he could just, he would just commit to it, and he knew he could bring it to his club. And there was a network of people there who would say, okay, we've got you. And so that's what happened. And, you know, 36 years later, it's continued on. I will say that he received the Service Above Self Award. We got Project of the Century for the district here a few years back. He was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. He received the Donald McRae Award. So we have definitely been recognized in a few different levels by Rotary. But again, for me, it's always about not only the club level, it's about the individual Rotarians who become engaged, and folks like Marc. And you can really, that's what fuels us. It's their passion. Obviously, you know, COVID impacted everybody, but, you know, one of the reasons that we're a youth organization, it's not just so much about young people, although they offer our highest ROI, because if we can invest in them now, that's decades of impact that they're going to have in their communities. But it's also their optimism, and it's their enthusiasm, and it's their ability to sort of turn on a dime. And we also try to integrate that as much as possible. So when the pandemic hit, when lockdown occurred in many communities, when it stopped all of international travel, we didn't say, oh, we're going to stop. And in fact, we didn't shut down for a day. My team, my staff, you know, we all came together and we said, okay, what can we work on now that we haven't been able to for this? And so we just shifted immediately. And that shift for us, while on the back burner, we kept on working, you know, supporting the alumni, particularly from the Middle East that we worked with. We also said, well, what can we shift to? And the challenge that we decided to focus on was here in the US. And, you know, I asked myself a question, because many people say, well, why don't you work here in the US? And I think it's become very prominent over the last, you know, even 5 to 10 years that, you know, our communities can use some sort of training and empathetic leadership. I mean, maybe the 35 years that we have spent working in some of the most conflict-ridden zones around the globe wasn't just for us to help them. Maybe it was helping us train to help ourselves. And that's sort of the lens we began to look at it. And we've seen an increasingly fractured United States, both on a national and a community level. And what we understood is communities don't need to look like Israel and Palestine in order to be in need of healing. They can and they do look like Bloomington Normal. They look like Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where we're located. And the young people that we're working with, they can look like the kids, the parents, and the grandparents that I know are right in your community that spend their decades, their whole lives, they're never visiting neighborhoods. They're never going to West Bloomington. They're never going to different parts of Normal ever throughout their whole time. We get in these habits of just driving one way on the road, and we just miss, we bypass whole areas. So we said, well, what can we do? What can we focus on that? So we said, all right, where are we going to work? What are we going to do? So we tried to work last year in Bloomington Normal. We had sort of tentative plans to work with the Boys and Girls Club, who's been a partner with us for a few years. And again, the pandemic, you know, sort of eliminated that opportunity. But we're still focusing on it for this year. One of the exciting things that we were able to squeeze in last year during one of these sort of hiatuses is to do our own domestic program across the United States. A couple of things that were exciting about that for us was we didn't have any partners. We didn't work with any schools or organizations. We just went directly to young people. And we had no idea if we were going to be able to reach them. But we were able to reach them. We did lots of online courses. We offered 100% scholarship program, regardless of financial ability, regardless of background. If you got through the very rigorous application and enrollment process that we went through, we said in terms of equity, everybody starts off, you're just in the program. And my board was saying, my God, how can we afford to do that? And I said, you know, that's the question we need to answer, not the young people. If a young person gets in this program, they deserve to be here. It's not up to them to figure out how to pay for it. That's on us. And of course, that's where Rotary has helped come in. And as we wanted to do that, one of our ideas was how do we build sort of a hub, and Roger and Marc and Bob Weldon and Drake and Hank, all these famous Rotarians that are in your community, Linda, et cetera. We were saying, how can we create a hub here in Bloomington Normal? And we've tried and we messed around with this idea for a few years. And we've always been saying the main way to do that is to create passionate young people from this community. We couldn't figure out how. We need somebody, we need to have a young person that effectively could represent us, but epitomized sort of everything that was positive about FFI, but also represented the community. So last year we were thrilled when Addi Weaver applied for an 18-session virtual program. These are 2-hour sessions every week. There's nothing to go on your, you know, they can put it on their resume, et cetera, but this is somebody every week who came together for 18 sessions. And we were pretty happy. I was like, this is a, you know, somebody from Bloomington Normal. I know everybody in that community. They're going to be, you know, they're going to be pretty good. And then when Addi came here to the US, for a week to the US, to New Hampshire, it seemed like a different country for somebody from Bloomington Normal. We were just beyond thrilled. And we said, this is the type of young person, this is a type of young leader that I knew was just waiting to be asked to be part of the FFI program, not only from Bloomington Normal, but from across the US. Because it was a big leap for us to just decide to do this in the US. Is there the need for this? Will we have people who apply? And we wanted a leader who could take the lessons from FFI, and the main thing we teach is through hard work, exponentially increase their impact on the community that they were from, on your community. And because as we've sort of shifted our mission, I think our mission now is more effectively stated as we're helping young people become the best versions of themselves so that they in turn can help their community become the best version of itself. And that is something that I think we can all get behind. And whether that community becoming the best version of itself is dealing with geopolitical issues that face Israel and Palestine, whether it's dealing with issues around culture here in the US, if it's dealing with issues around the impact of what's happening in the environment, it doesn't make a difference. But what we need to do is we need to invest in young people to have the skills to build themselves up, to be able to build a network, be able to build a coalition, to be able to build future, essentially Rotary clubs, Rotary networks, to come together, not to talk about where we're different, but to come together to realize how we can make joint solutions to the biggest challenges in our community. And Addi represented all that. They're still involved. They're participating daily with online interviews with us. We have a weekly leadership course that we're running on Zoom for Ugandan community activists in their 20s and 30s. They're coming in April, just signed up yesterday to come here to the campus for 3 weeks to intern and volunteer with us. Addi is there for us. And I think Addi can share their story much better than I can. I'll be around afterwards for any sort of questions, as will Alex. Alex, I've given you short shrift, but that's the deal. We always focus on the participant first. But Alex and I are happy to answer questions afterwards. But I'd really like Addi to have a moment to share their story with you. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. It's nice to see all of you. So I'm going to go ahead and present a little bit about my experience in the Friends Forever International Nationwide Discovery Program that I participated in this past summer. So I'm going to start talking about, Steve had a great introduction. Thank you, Steve. But Steve says that helping youth become the best versions of themselves so they can help their community become the best version of itself is the foundation of what Friends Forever does. And that is what I see every day in Friends Forever. I don't go a single day without communication from at least one person from Friends Forever on any given day. That's never happened before. We have a ton of group chats that are set up, a lot of programs that I'm involved with. Even yesterday I was helping facilitate interviews for youth from Northern Ireland to come to the US in April. So I heard about Friends Forever through an organization that I'm a part of, which is called Not in Our School. And I am on the steering committee for Not in Our School, which is kind of like a subset of Not in Our Town, if you've heard of that before. But I'm on the leadership team for the 4 schools in the area. So Bloomington High School, Normal Community West, and Bloomington High School. So I heard about it through an email from a community member who I have known for a very long time, since my freshman year. And I knew her through the Promise Council, which I'm the chair of at Bloomington High School. So I received an email, and this was February of 2020. I received an email about an application that was in for a youth leadership program. And I was like, okay, and I'm not gonna say that I always answer my emails with the amount of dedication that I did with the Friends Forever one. But I filled out the Google form after visiting the website because I looked at the mission and I looked at what Friends Forever does, and I can say that I have never wanted something more in my life to be a part of it. I was so nervous to fill out the application. I was like, what if I don't get in? But I did, so we're safe now. So the application was probably the longest form I have ever completed. Friends Forever prides itself on being the most challenging youth leadership program in the world. I saw that through the application. The questions they ask they're so deep. They require you to reflect within yourself, to ask yourself, when was the last time you failed? What did you learn from that experience? To ask you, what was the best piece of advice that you've ever received? What's the best piece of advice you've ever given? And then also, what plant represents you? That's a very important one as well. So I had an interview a week after I filled out the application, and I was accepted about a week later from a phone call from Steve. I was like floating. I was so excited. All of my friends can probably tell you that I literally could not have a conversation. I could not hold a conversation. I was just so excited. So the virtual sessions started in early March of 2020. So in those sessions, we stayed on Zoom for about 1.5 to 2 hours twice a week. So Sundays and Tuesdays. I can't believe I remember that. It feels like so long ago. But we stayed on the virtual sessions and we got to know our teammates. So I'm from Bloomington. I was born here, I was raised here. And a lot of my friends in my program are from all over the country. So I have friends from Louisiana, Michigan, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and South Carolina. And I'm probably missing some because I always do. But the amount of friends that I have made throughout Friends Forever is insane. And I couldn't have asked for a better experience. So for the team building virtual sessions, the most meaningful, which I say most meaningful, it's kind of an odd term to use because the entire thing was very meaningful. But we had paint by number sessions. I mean, the first time I was sent something in the mail, I was like, what? This is so odd. I got a water bottle? This is crazy. But I also got, this is pretty important as well, a memory book, which every team that goes through the Friends Forever International program gets a memory book. And the memory books have leaders of the day sections and my days, and all of these activities in the memory book are designed for us to go at our own pace and for us to understand our leadership journey and our personal journey and how it relates to the sessions that we did. So we did improv, which is a pillar of playfulness, paint by numbers, public speaking practice, which we all had to develop a speech to present at some point during the program. So that was the culmination of the Friends Forever experience, was giving a speech and curating a speech that was basically speak your why. That's what the speech is about. So we presented online in May, which is very weird to give a speech presentation online, I'm just going to say that. But when we were flown to New Hampshire this summer, I gave a presentation to a Rotary Club, like I am now. Wasn't nearly as big as this one. This is really cool. Never seen a Rotary Club this big or this fun. Right. So the environment created in the virtual sessions alone, which is a feat. If any of you have been in virtual meetings or high school, it's terrible. It's really bad. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But you look at a screen and all the cameras are off, and the teacher asks a question and no one answers the question, and that's generally how it goes. But the Zoom sessions for Friends Forever were the complete opposite of that. So everyone had their camera on generally all the time. Everyone wanted to be there. And that it just feels so good to be a part of a program where everyone is so invested in what they're doing and their personal growth journey. I, in an interview yesterday, a interviewee, I don't know if that's the correct term, but she asked if it was easy to make friends in Friends Forever, and I said it could not possibly be easier anywhere else. Like, it's insane. Everyone wants to get to know you and makes an effort towards that. So my group was the very first nationwide and online program. So my team's name is Orbit C3. We're from everywhere. We met online twice a week. We did identity workshops. I researched my family ancestry. A lot of us are very musical. We virtually volunteered at a nursing home in New Hampshire by playing music. So I mean, my friend Juliet is a singer-songwriter. She plays the guitar. My friend Alex plays the bass guitar. There's just a lot of musical inclination in Friends Forever, which is a sort of community glue that tends to hold people together. I personally play the violin, and I was able to play the violin for a nursing home in New Hampshire. And that entire program was specifically set up by alumni in Northern Ireland for volunteering over COVID, when we weren't able to volunteer at the same capacity we had previously. So during the immersion trip, which was July to late July, early August, so I was surprised by Steve and staff, which is a frequent occurrence, as I'm going to talk about a little bit. But I was surprised because I flew from Bloomington to Atlanta to Boston. And my friends from South Carolina, which really neither of these flights make sense. You're going like that. You're not just going straight across, but South Carolina, they also flew to Atlanta and then to Boston. But we had the same plane from Atlanta to Boston, which was a surprise. So we saw each other earlier than we thought we would. It was funny because my first impression was that my friend Juliet had spilled taco salad all over her white jeans. I mean, you win some, you lose some, I guess. But we met each other in the airport. It was great. And we got to Boston and we were greeted by all of the alumni, which most of them were Palestinian and Israeli, who had flown to the US about a week or two before to start their program as well. So meaningful experiences in the immersion trip included so many things. We volunteered almost every day. Our days were packed. We woke up around like 6 a.m., which I guess new experiences every day. I'm here. I'm not used to waking up this early. But we would wake up really early. Some days we woke up around 5 and we went to bed at like 11 or 12. So very packed days. We went to Boston one day where we visited the base, which is a program that is specifically for youth living in inner city Boston for sports programs after school to keep students engaged in their education. We call it the van because I mean that's what it is, but that's how we were transported everywhere. I think it's 13-seater van. So me and my 6 friends, we went everywhere in the van. There was a lot of car time. We had a playlist that we individually curated before we went, and the trip is also no technology for every single group that comes through, which is really hard to do online when you're virtual. So on the in-person trip, it was like you give staff your phone and you don't get it until you start to head home. So no phones means further immersion. I always like to say when people are like, my parents freaked out, I'm not going to lie, you're going to an entirely different state. I can't imagine what parents would be like if you were going from another country and to have no phone. But Friends Forever is all about leaving your comfort zone because that is the only way to truly learn and grow from your experiences. And a phone and technology is a comfort zone in a way. So getting rid of that allows people to be fully immersed in the program and to understand the capacity of their own feelings towards other people and how we can be unified as a group. So we faced challenges. It wasn't all like sunshine and rainbows. It is challenging. It's a challenging program. I would not have it any other way. Although I will say I'm about to talk about a disagreement that we had, and if this was the worst thing that happened on the trip, it's so insignificant. But the first time we went to a grocery store, this is such a weird story, I'm sorry. But the first time we went to a grocery store, we had the biggest argument we've ever had. And that's saying something. We didn't know how to work as a team within a grocery store. I mean, confusing aisles, I don't know. But that is the biggest challenge that we faced on the trip. We did climb a mountain as well. So we climbed to the top of Morgan Peak, which was really great. It was very fun. Our goal was to get everyone to the top at the same time. So we had to work together for that. Friends Forever. It's like what we do here is like planting seeds and watching them bloom in individual communities. So the global reach is further because of the online opportunity for alumni. I once asked staff, I can't imagine that online programs would have any pros over having them in person. And they said, no, we can reach so many more people by having it online. Just another skill set that is opened by staff and by the alumni of the program. So leadership programs, in my brain, I guess, make sense in the way that they are frequently offered to expand your outer world. When we think about organizations like Promise Council or Not in Our School, anything that's involved in school environments, because that's what I'm familiar with, they offer to expand your outer world, to improve your experiences, which is of course important, but in order to grow an inner world, again, not used to waking up this early. When your outer world grows, your inner world can too, but that only happens through persistence and strength within, and that happens through Friends Forever as well. So at Friends Forever, staff work with us to personalize our programs to have the maximum number of firsts. The first time climbing a mountain, eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on a mountain, that's a fun first. Writing a speech, etc. The application form asked us what we had done before, so it was an entirely tailored program specifically for us. Friends Forever operates under the goal acronym called the Recipe. And the recipe, I have to write it down because I forget something every single time, but the recipe is resilience, empathy, communication, impact, perseverance, and playfulness. See, I messed it up already. So yeah, that's what the programs are like. So if you're okay with this, I do have a speech. It's my second speech ever that I've prepared. for Friends Forever. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. When I was in first grade, I was sent to the principal's office for stealing a giant pencil from my teacher. I wouldn't have even gotten caught if I hadn't pretended to write with it at my desk. So I stole a pencil, but there was nothing to write because I had finished my work 45 minutes ago. My teacher, Ms. Jackson, insisted that we read when done with worksheets, which is a fine policy, but I read every book in her classroom that semester. The goal was for us to be quiet and easy. I also got in trouble for making an extreme profit off of scented markers and for stealing a library book. I was a wonderful child, if you were wondering. Then I moved schools, and suddenly, instead of reading after worksheets, there were more worksheets. There were more assignments and vocabulary words and math tables. I still don't know which was worse, wanting students to be invisible or working them into the ground. It steals curiosity, making thieves out of our teachers, and it scares me. I used to dream of opening a forest kindergarten because how could you ever restrict so much limitless curiosity? At my new school, I was also very shy and pretty bad at making friends. After a few months sitting on the buddy bench at recess, a girl my age, Nyan, asked me to be friends after never having a conversation with me before, such are kids. But a year later, my parents found me another friend at the school park in June, which is a funny way to say that I hid from her, and then our moms started talking, and suddenly I was at her house every day before school. Nyan found me in the playground in second grade and told me that we couldn't be friends anymore because I had made a new friend. In elementary school, I was frequently sick with stomach pain, and not just from the pain of heartbreak. I found out in 8th grade that I have Crohn's disease, discovered right after my appendix ruptured. 3 years later, in the height of COVID, I was hospitalized for 2 weeks. I missed 2 weeks of school because I was in the hospital, another 2 because of a liquid diet that made me so tired I could only do an hour of school a day, and 1 week for surgery. Sometimes I lay in bed at 3 a.m. and I remember when my NG tube rubbed my throat so raw that when I swallowed, I physically couldn't stop myself from crying. I was happy when they gave me morphine in the emergency room because the Tylenol in the pediatric ward just doesn't work the same. At one point, all of my grades were D's and F's. I worked as hard as I could, and I sacrificed so much of my health and sleep to finish nothing of meaning. I sobbed over school. It isn't the same kind of pain as losing your best friend when you're 7, but it is similar in the way that with Nyan and Crohn's, I lost pieces of myself to something I couldn't control. I wrote an elegy in my mind over and over again when I couldn't sleep at night. Mourned for who I used to or could have been without this month of my life. I tried the hardest I could, and it wasn't good enough. What does it mean to be chronically ill in a society that thrives on stress? I used to think this combination of feeling like a burden and unable to live up to my own expectations removed me from the child I was years ago. I am not talking about how I once volunteered to have my mouth washed out with soap because I was genuinely curious about what it might taste like, but the strength of a child to know the amount of bravery it takes to be known at all. Last semester, I took psychology. I learned a term called flashbulb memory. A flashbulb memory is an almost exact recollection of an event or time because the moment was so emotional or impactful or just weird. Memories are generally not like this. They're like a blank coloring book. We know the outlines, we can identify the figures, but we have to guess the colors. Flashbulb memories are different. If you have one, you probably remember it in vivid detail. The clothes you were wearing 5 or 10 years ago on your first day at a new job, the ER walls after breaking a bone, a gift you received at a holiday celebration a decade ago. If you'll handle me lightly misusing scientific terminology for one moment, my entire Friends Forever experience feels like a flashbulb memory, even though I know it's not. I remember the decorations on the wall of the base, how the grocery store was arranged and where I went in order. I remember the exact group meditation we completed on top of Morgan Peak and how the jagged rocks felt underneath me. One night we made pancakes, and I remember the entire thing from start to finish. Where the whole world might be an empty coloring book with a few completed pages, Friends Forever is bursting with color like an artist took to my brain with Prismacolor pencils. I left New Hampshire on August 2nd last summer with the complete full knowledge that I am important. That week of memories stuck as a flashbulb in my mind. Every workshop, every reflection, every argument was handled in a way to make everyone know that they are valued. My whole team wears friendship bracelets my friend Alex made for us. Mine fell off last month, but even though I don't hold the woven blue and green on my wrist, every waking moment, I still know that my team is there, even thousands of miles away. I hold what I learned this summer close to my heart. I start and end meetings with debrief. I ask reflection questions. I prioritize storytelling when I'm working with youth leaders. I am a firm believer in the power of community, if you couldn't tell already. Every collection of people around us show us who we are and who we will grow to be, what we will hold on to, and what we will leave behind. I recently stumbled upon my new favorite piece of art. It states, "The world is so big and I am so small. Sometimes it's scary because I get so easily lost, but there are so many paths and so many homes, I always end up belonging." This piece of art reminds me that my personage is an homage to the people who have surrounded and supported me. My parents, teachers, friends forever teammates. As I transition out of my childhood into further education, as I make my way through the world, I hope to act as a leader who can transform ideals into action and facilitate community. After all, there are so many paths, so many homes, and I always end up belonging. After my school hiatus in the hospital last year disconnected me from myself, Friends Forever gave me the tools to knit my seams back together. I realize now that I'm important, a feeling I choose to keep. Friends Forever International forces us to confront a question. What do we hold on to, and what do we leave behind? Thank you.
There should have been a PowerPoint presentation this morning. I'm going to take responsibility for not getting that up. So she said technology was a crutch. She just did an amazing job without a crutch. Do you have any questions, I guess, for Addi or for Steve and Alex?
We do think you can read afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Can I talk for 1 second? We have some
Yeah.
further things
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So I'm a part of the Bloomington Normal Friends Forever Planning Committee. And I've been talking to Steve and Alex a little bit about programs in Bloomington Normal. Steve, if you remember, he said that conflict doesn't have to look like the Middle East or Northern Ireland to need conflict resolution programs and youth leadership programs, especially in Bloomington Normal. I've seen this in my work in Bloomington High School, if they work school, and Promise Council and not in our school. So we've been talking about programs that will allow Bloomington youth to participate at the same level that I have participated in Friends Forever, because giving tools for people to be able to transform their own communities is the most important foundational aspect of Friends Forever, and also my life and the work that I've been doing with Friends Forever. So thank you so much for being here and having me. It was a pleasure. I love that it's fun here. You guys make fun of each other. So thank you.